Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Hello and welcome to BBC Parliament's live coverage from the House of Commons. The main business today is the remaining stages of the Welfare Reform and Work Bill. The bill aims to make £12 billion in welfare cuts and seeks to train a further 3 million apprentices. Remember to join me, Georgina Pattinson, for a roundup of the day in both Houses of Parliament and the Select Committee rooms at 11 o'clock this evening. But first we have questions to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, and his team of ministers.
Order! Order! Questions to Mr Chancellor of the Exchequer, Mrs Emma Lewell-Buck.
Number one, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to answer this question together with questions 2, 3 and 4. Last night, unelected Labour and Liberal peers have voted down the financial measures on tax credits approved by this elected House of Commons. That raises clear constitutional issues which we will deal with. We will continue to reform tax credits and save the money needed so that Britain lives within its means, while at the same time lessening the impact on families during the transition. I will set out the plans in the autumn statement. We remain as determined as ever to build the low-tax, low-welfare, high-wage economy that Britain needs and the British people want to see.
Emma Lewell-Buck.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. 6,800 children in South Shields are growing up in families which rely on tax credits. One of my constituents told me that tax credits at the moment only just make it possible for families to feed and clothe their children as it is. If this government keep making cuts to those of us who are the lowest paid, we may just give up hope. The public, the experts, some of his own MPs and the other players all agree that his plans will victimise working parents and their children. So can the Chancellor please give my constituents some hope and shelve these ridiculous tax credit cuts?
We will give her constituents support, and indeed the constituents we all represent in this House, by continuing to deliver economic security in this country. Economic security that has seen unemployment fall in her constituency by 44% since 2010. And one of the ways we deliver economic security is by controlling our welfare bill and making sure this country lives within its means. That is what we will continue to do.
Mr Osborne.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Chancellor has singularly failed to listen to the SNP and to this House when we have said he needs to think again about tax credits. He sounds like he's more keen on dealing with the peers than listening to them. So how about he listens to the people and just drops these tax credit plans once and for all?
Well, this House of Commons voted 3 times for the changes that were rejected by the House of Lords, and I'm sure that we look forward to the support of the Scottish Nationalist Party in that constitutional question. But I would make this point to her constituents. We need to have a welfare system that works. We need to move to a lower welfare, higher wage economy. We do that by introducing the national living wage and having a welfare bill that the country can afford. That is the best thing we can do for the security of the people that she represents.
Streeting.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. If the Chancellor had listened to the evidence from the outset, he wouldn't be in this mess. And if his backbenchers had voted with their feet, with their consciences, there would be an alignment of opinion between this House and the other place. Instead of manufacturing a phony constitutional crisis, why won't he put his toys back in the pram and appreciate he needs to go back to the drawing board with his failed policy that hits working people the hardest?
We will deliver the welfare savings that we were elected to deliver in this Parliament. Now, we will help people in the transition to that lower welfare, higher wage economy. But I remember a time when the Labour Party used to support moving from welfare to work. They've entirely abandoned that approach. We will be the party that stands up for working people, and working people need controlled welfare and a country that lives within its means.
Naz Shah. Not here. Sarah Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Children's Society estimate there are 10,000 children living in 5,100 families in Rotherham who will be punished by the tax credit changes. What transitional provisions will the Chancellor put in place to support them?
Well, I will set out at the autumn statement how we make sure that we smooth the transition to this lower welfare, higher wage economy that the people of Rotherham and the rest of the country want to see. We have to make choices in this country. Are we prepared to see our country decline? Are we prepared to see our budget out of control? Are we prepared to see jobs lost? Or do we want to continue delivering the economic security that sees a record number of people in work and has seen employment increase in Rotherham?
Mr. Leslie.
On this constitutional point, will the Chancellor now read out the specific sentence in the Conservative Party manifesto where he promised he was going to be cutting these tax credits?
Give him a job. Well, I'm very glad he's got a copy of the Conservative manifesto. It's an excellent document that says we're going to deliver better schools for people, we're going to put more money into the National Health Service for people, we're going to invest in transport for people, and it says in that document we're going to make £12 billion of welfare savings.
Good, Hosey.
Mr. Speaker, we know that there are 500,000 more children in poverty since 2010, and potentially... and 500,000 more children in poverty since 2010, and potentially 4 million children in poverty by the end of this Parliament. If the Chancellor is in listening mode, knowing he does not need to make these cuts in order to balance the budget, why does he not listen to those who say, stop now with the policy of tax credit cuts?
Well, I'm afraid the honourable gentleman is just not correct on the numbers. Child poverty is down by 300,000 since 2010. And the number of children in workless households is now 500,000 fewer than it was when this government came to office. The truth is, it is difficult to take any lectures from the SNP about balancing the books. They made forecasts for their oil revenues, which would have left Scotland with a £30 billion black hole if they had ever got their way. So we will go on delivering economic security for the people of Scotland and indeed the rest of the United Kingdom by taking the difficult decisions that his party ducks.
The Chancellor is in denial. Is it not the case, Mr. Speaker? Absolute denial. That yesterday, the 26th of October, demonstrated two things. The Chancellor has lost his political touch, and his chance of being Prime Minister has just gone up in a puff of ermine-clad smoke.
Was that a Treasury question, is it?
Well, as ever, when pressed, actually all they want to talk about is party political games rather than sorting out the mess that this country was in 6 or 7 years ago. As a result of the changes we have made, there are hundreds of thousands more people in Scotland with jobs. Businesses are investing in Scotland as they are across the United Kingdom, and we will go on making those changes. He can go and praise in aid a House of Lords that he has spent his whole life campaigning to abolish. I'm going to go on delivering the reforms to our economy that are needed to help Scotland continue to grow.
Donald!
Can I say this? Can I just say, can I remind the House, the 3 million people out there who've done everything asked of them, bringing up their children, going to work, this is not a constitutional matter. They will lose £1,300 a year. Can I, given what happened in the other place last night, can I reassure the Chancellor that if he brings forward proposals to reverse the cuts to tax credits fairly and in full, he will not be attacked by this side of the House. Indeed, Indeed, he will be applauded. But can he assure us that whatever proposals he brings forward, he will not support any that an independent assessment demonstrates will cause any child to be forced to live below the poverty line?
Well, look, I'm of course happy to accept any proposals that he puts forward, but I would make this point. I'm happy to listen to those proposals, but let me make this point. There is a difference between those who say we want to make no savings to welfare at all, we want to abolish things like the benefit cap, we're not prepared to make savings at all to the tax credit system, and those who have said, yes, we do want to move to a lower welfare society, but we want help in the transition. Now, if he has proposals to help in the transition, of course I will listen to them, but if he is again promoting uncapped welfare and unlimited borrowing, then I'm afraid I don't think the British people are going to listen to him.
The Chancellor has a choice before him. He can push on with the tax giveaways to multinational corporations. He can press on with tax cuts to the wealthiest few in inheritance tax that he announced in his summer budget. Or he can reverse those tax breaks to the few and instead go for a less excessive surplus target in 2019 and 20 and be in a position to avoid penalising the 3 million working families with these tax credit cuts and stick to his self-imposed charter. Is he prepared to listen to reason on this matter? Is he willing, or is anyone on that side prepared to step up and show some leadership on this issue?
That's rich. Let's remember, we inherited a tax system where city bankers were paying lower tax rates than the people who cleaned for them, and multinationals were paying no tax at all. Now, we have introduced a new tax to make sure that multinationals do not divert their profits, and we increased capital gains tax precisely to avoid that abuse of the tax rates. So we're not going to take lectures from the Labour Party on a fair tax system. And I would say this to him. He in a way reveals what he believes, which I, of course, completely respect, which is he says, abandon your surplus rule, run a deficit forever. I profoundly disagree with that central judgment. I think if you borrow forever, if you are not prepared to make difficult decisions on welfare, you are going to condemn this country to decline. And that means that, as a result, people are going to become unemployed and living standards are going to fall. That is not the Britain I want to see. We're going to go on taking those difficult decisions to deliver that lower welfare, lower tax and a higher wage economy. And this elected House of Commons is going to go on promoting the economic plan that delivers that.